This here song, it ain't so sad, the cutest little song y'all ever.
Before there was rock and roll as we know it, before the stage-stomping riffs, the leather jackets, and the roaring electric guitars, there was one man who defined the sound: Chuck Berry. He didn't just play the guitar, he turned it into an engine that transformed American music forever. But behind every legend stands the heroes who shaped him, inspired him, and pushed him to create greatness. And late in his life, Chuck Berry finally opened up about the 10 guitarists he admired the most. Musicians he believed were the true backbone of rock, blues, and rhythm and soul. Today, we reveal those names, the ones that helped shape Chuck Berry into the icon he became. 1. T-Bone Walker. Chuck Berry often called T-Bone Walker the man who set the foundation for modern electric guitar. Growing up in St. Louis, Chuck would listen obsessively to Walker's records, mesmerized by the smoothness of his playing and the way his guitar could sing like a voice. T-Bone had a stage presence unlike any other, swinging the guitar behind his head, bending notes with a flair that made every performance a show. Chuck often recalled copying Walker's phrasing, trying to emulate the subtle bends, slides, and rhythmic swings. More than that, Walker's jazz-influenced blues taught Chuck that guitar could be melodic, expressive, and technically innovative. When Chuck later developed his signature double-stop licks and rolling riffs, he always credited Walker's pioneering style as a critical influence. For him, T-Bone wasn't just a guitarist. He was proof that the guitar could lead, enchant, and command an audience in ways words never could. Every note Chuck played carried a shadow of Walker's influence, making him the undeniable starting point of Chuck's musical lineage. 2. Muddy Waters. Chuck Berry always emphasized the deep influence of Muddy Waters on his music. When Chuck moved to Chicago, he witnessed the raw power of Muddy's blues firsthand. Muddy's presence on stage was magnetic. His gritty voice, commanding riffs, and unapologetic style created a sound that shook the city's clubs. For Chuck, Muddy was more than just a guitarist. He was a teacher of attitude and authenticity. The way Muddy could make every note resonate with life's hardships, joy, and heartbreak fascinated Chuck. He often remarked that Muddy's approach to timing, phrasing, and stage dominance gave him the confidence to develop his own signature style. Many of Chuck's iconic riffs, including those in Johnny B. Goode, were inspired by Muddy's assertive attack and tonal clarity. The relationship went beyond admiration. Muddy Waters personally mentored Chuck, introducing him to the professional music world and giving him the tools to navigate the recording industry. In Chuck's mind, Muddy wasn't just a favorite. He was a guide, a mentor, and a pioneer who bridged Delta blues and modern rock. 3. B.B. King. Chuck Berry frequently praised B.B. King for his unrivaled emotional expression. Unlike others who focused purely on technical skill, B.B. infused every note with feeling, teaching Chuck that the guitar was as much a voice as a stringed instrument. Chuck was particularly enamored with B.B.'s signature vibrato, the quivering vocal-like quality that made each phrase sing. Listening to B.B., Chuck learned how to convey joy, pain, and excitement in a single bend. Beyond technique, Chuck respected B.B. King's professionalism and stage command. His ability to captivate a crowd without overplaying or overcomplicating inspired Chuck to simplify while maximizing impact. Chuck often cited B.B. as the model for combining subtlety and power, a balance that became central to his own style. Even as rock and roll emerged as a louder, faster, and flashier genre, Chuck's playing retained the expressive soul he admired in B.B. King. To him, B.B. wasn't merely a guitar hero, he was the embodiment of blues storytelling, an artist who could make a single note resonate across generations. 4. Charlie Christian. Even before Chuck Berry picked up an electric guitar, Charlie Christian had revolutionized the instrument. Chuck was captivated by Christian's smooth, horn-like phrasing and his effortless improvisational runs. Christian transformed the guitar from a background rhythm instrument into a lead voice capable of melody, complexity, and virtuosity. Chuck listened to his recordings obsessively, studying the way Christian's lines flowed seamlessly over complex jazz progressions. He marveled at Christian's ability to combine technical brilliance with musicality, showing that speed and precision could coexist with feeling. Christian's work influenced Chuck's approach to solos, riffs, and phrasing, particularly his use of catchy horn-like licks in songs like Roll Over Beethoven. Chuck admired that Christian pushed the guitar into uncharted territory, inspiring future generations to see it not just as an accompaniment, but as the center of musical storytelling. For Chuck, Christian was proof that innovation and melody could coexist, setting a precedent for every guitar hero who followed. 5. Lightnin' Hopkins. Chuck Berry had enormous respect for Lightnin' Hopkins, whose raw Texas blues carried a kind of earthy honesty that Chuck deeply admired. Hopkins's loose, conversational style inspired Chuck to blend spoken word, storytelling, and rhythm guitar in his own music. Chuck used to say that Hopkins played from the dirt, from the heartbeat, from the real place where the blues is born. Lightnin's unpredictability, his sudden tempo shifts and explosive bursts of notes, fascinated Chuck for decades. 6. Elmore James. Chuck Berry loved the fire and fury that Elmore James brought to the slide guitar. Even though Chuck didn't play slide himself, he adored the emotional violence of Elmore's tone, that screaming, broken glass sound. Songs like Dust My Broom shaped Chuck's understanding of intensity in blues music. Elmore showed him that the guitar didn't just sing, it could wail, it could shock the listener. For Chuck, Elmore James was the king of blues thunder. 7. Albert King. Chuck admired Albert King for one reason above all: attitude. Albert didn't play the guitar the traditional way. He flipped it upside down, bent strings until they cried, and unleashed blistering licks that rewrote the rules of blues. Chuck loved how Albert's playing was both heavy and soulful, filled with bending notes that seemed to defy gravity. What meant most to Chuck was Albert's confidence, the way he commanded the stage like a giant with a guitar slung across his chest. 8. Johnny Johnson. Chuck's bandmate and pianist. Though not a guitarist, Chuck always gave credit to Johnny Johnson, saying many of his iconic riffs were born from Johnny's piano lines. Chuck considered him a musical equal, a man whose rhythmic brilliance and melodic instincts shaped Chuck's entire catalog. Chuck would often say, "If you hear a Chuck Berry solo, you're hearing Johnny Johnson's mind on guitar." Johnny may not have played guitar, but without him, Chuck believed rock and roll would have sounded completely different. 9. Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Chuck Berry worshipped Sister Rosetta Tharpe, calling her the mother of us all. She was the first person he ever saw blend gospel intensity with electric guitar swagger, and she did it with more boldness than any man of her era. Rosetta's stage presence, her fearless picking, and her joyful power inspired Chuck to play louder, faster, and freer. In many ways, she was the spiritual ancestor of rock and roll, and Chuck always acknowledged her as one of his greatest influences. 10. Django Reinhardt. Chuck was mesmerized by Django Reinhardt, the jazz genius who revolutionized guitar playing despite losing the use of two fingers in a fire. Django's speed, improvisation, and charisma amazed Chuck, who often practiced Reinhardt's phrases to improve his own agility. Chuck admired Django's elegance, the way he made the guitar sound like a violin, a horn, and a drum all at once. For Chuck Berry, Django represented limitless musical imagination. Chuck Berry didn't just shape rock and roll, he defined it. But as this list shows, he never forgot the giants who came before him, the musicians who helped carve the path he eventually walked. These 10 guitarists weren't just his favorites, they were the beating heart of the music he loved. And through Chuck Berry, their influence still echoes in every riff, every solo, and every stage that rock music ever touched.